Here. I am Girish, AVP Volunteer Development, working with Mr. Ketanji. 1 minute. This is our first forum of 2022. As you all know, the topic is of this forum is PMBOK 7th edition demystified. We have got a good response in terms of registration, and the topic is also very interesting. Before we start, let me go through our agenda. PM forum will start in some time and will continue till the break. After the break, we'll be having the question and answer sessions, and also followed by the vote of thanks and certificate giving. Please note, post your questions in the chat box. They will be answered during the session and also before the break. PD details will be provided to all participants through email ID as per attendance. Feedback link will be provided in the chat box. Request all the participants to provide their feedback. Without taking much time, let me introduce our speaker for today. We have two speakers. They both are our chapter trainers. Please welcome Abhishek Upadhyay and Preetha Deepak. Let me introduce our first trainer, Abhishek. Abhishek has over 15 years of experience executing and managing projects as a project manager. He has been delivering projects in banking and financial services domain in multiple geographies. Abhishek started his career as a business analyst and then went on to become a project manager. In past, he has worked with Newgen Software Technologies and Zycus. Currently, he works as a project manager with Adenza. Abhishek is PMP, PMI and DASSM certified. He has been associated with PMI Mumbai chapter as a trainer for the past 5 years. Now, our second trainer, Preetha. Preetha is an artist and an experienced project manager with over 1.5 decade industry experience working with top multinationals. She has managed large-scale complex mixed-use construction and interior fit-out projects accounting to about 6 million square feet. Preetha started her career as a management trainee with Cushman and Wakefield, which is a global real estate firm. Subsequently, she worked with Acom, which is one of the world's largest infrastructure consulting firm. In her capacity as a design manager, she managed the complex design interface on the project. Later, Preetha joined M. Moser Associates, which is in the top 50 global interior design giants. Over the last 8 years, she has led many projects with M. Moser from concept till completion in the capacity of the senior team leader and expert project management consultant. She has worked across industry types, have collaborated with the variety of clients, stakeholders, consultants, and contractors across multiple geographies, and brings along the knowledge, wisdom, skills, and industry's best practices in the sphere of project management. She is passionate about sharing knowledge and conducts project management training. Preetha has been a faculty with the Project Management Institute Mumbai chapter for about 2.5 years and facilitates PMP exam preparation trainings. Over to Preetha and Abhishek.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. So Abhishek, I will just share the screen so you can take over.
Sure. Okay, so hi, everyone. It's great to see all of you through an online session. It would have been great if we could have connected face to face, but unfortunately, due to COVID situation, we are connecting online. Nonetheless, this particular topic is very, very interesting. PMBOK Guide 7th edition demystified. So 7th edition was kind of introduced in the on August 2021. So there have been too many questions and queries around people who, or the project managers who refer to PMBOK Guide for their projects. So they were very keen to understand that how this 7th edition is different from the previous editions. Not only that, the biggest concern or the biggest queries, they came from another set of individuals who were basically project managers or people who wanted to attempt or who wanted to give the PMP exam and get the PMP certification. They were really worried that, now that PMBOK 7 has come, will it the questions from PMBOK 7 will come in the test or not? What is the relevance of PMBOK 6? PMBOK 6 is gone or not? And then there was a new and there was the element of exam content outline. So there were many questions and everything which were kind of raised by project managers and other individuals for a pretty long time. So it was thought out that we should have a session, and through this session, what we intend to do is that we want to give you an overarching idea that why why the PMBOK guide and why the project management standard is kind of it is updated from time to time, and what is the relevance of the change this time, how big is the impact or how small is the impact. So we will be giving you this brief idea. This let me go to the agenda. So why the PMBOK gets updated, we will update you in evolutionary roadmap for PMBOK. So that Preetha will be taking you over. Then what are the key considerations of PMBOK 7, and what is the difference between the previous edition and the current? Preetha will kind of explain you along with the 12 principles. Then we will take you through the 8 performance domains. So principles and domains are and performance domains are something they are key feature of the PMBOK 7th edition. What is meaning of those principles? What are meaning of those performance domains? That we will take you through in. At the end, we will explain you about the tailoring and models, methods, and artifacts. Tailoring is not a really new concept. It's something which you must have already kind of gone through if you know if you know editions 5th and edition 6th. So how different is tailoring is introduced in this particular edition, that also we will go through. So let's get started. First topic on the agenda. Preetha, you can go ahead. Yeah. What is the need? Why the PMBOK gets updated? So if you know that, any the PMBOK is industry-based standard, how the projects are being executed in the industry. It takes feedback from industry, and then it prepares the standard. When the industry changes, standards also should change. So that is one very basic and intuitive kind of the reason why the PMBOK standard gets updated. So what are the global perspective with management? What are the new ideas which are coming in the industry? What are the new project managers are adopting to execute that project? So that those kind of learning is taken from different geographies, and then the standard is kind of it is compiled and it is edited. So it's a work, it's a teamwork, and members of Project Management Institute who have been contributing to the time, they come together, they discuss, they debate, and then they update the standards. As also you can previously in the previous decades, the advancement in technology was not that fast paced as it is now, as it is today. So the technology changes, the thinking changes, what the new skills come into picture. So all those things have to be taken together, and it has to be compiled, and it has to be introduced in the market as the standard. Similarly, what are the various approaches, various perspectives in the industry? That is also kind of studied, and then it is taken ahead. So any standard, if it has to be relevant, it has to update itself time and again. So that is what PMBOK is doing from the we had edition 6 previously, and now we have edition 7. Yeah, Preetha, we can go ahead. So what does the experts emphasize? Whenever the standards are to be updated, so what is the focus? So we have to ensure that PMBOK's credibility and relevance has to be maintained. So, for example, in previously, if you have gone through the previous editions, you must have realized that those editions were prescriptive kind of we had proposed something kind of a prescriptive kind of standards were proposed. So there were processes and there were knowledge areas, and if you want to execute the project, you have to process. There was a clear-cut way that was proposed. But now the way industry is changing, it is very difficult to update. It is very difficult to maintain a prescriptive kind of a standard. So that's why this version, if you see in this, you will see project manager has made a very great shift. So the shift is made from prescriptive based standards to what we call rather than prescriptive, we have a standard which is more kind of, it guides you, it gives you principles. So we have a principle based standard. Sorry. So we have a principles based standard. The idea of principle based standard is that it is very easy to whenever new ideas come in, those ideas can be introduced in the standard more easily if you have principle based standard. It is a more guiding principle. Also, the readability of the PMBOK has to be improved. So that was also focused, and how it can be done, that was kind of considered. And as I said, that in the industry, what other project managers are using, what are their needs, those things are kind of studied, they are taken care, and then the PMBOK is updated. Preetha, we can go ahead. You are on mute, Preetha.
Sure. So from here, I'll be taking on till completion of the principles, and then I'll hand off the mic once again to Abhishek. So I will be quickly covering the evolutionary roadmap, the key milestones, and then the differences between the previous version, which is 6th edition, which was launched in 2017, and the 2021 new latest version, 7th edition, the key differences and how the contents have been realigned. And then I would be quickly covering the 12 principles in brief, which is a very new concept in the 7th edition. So first, let me take you all through the PMBOK's evolutionary roadmap. So we all know the first version was in 1987, although that is not shown on this roadmap. So since the first time it was launched in 1987 until about 2017, right? So all those years, it has been a prescriptive kind of a standard. Right. If we see the 1996 standard, it was the first one to be distinguished as a guide to the body of knowledge, right, rather than a body of knowledge for project management. And then there, the project management was something defined as the application of knowledge, skills, and tools and techniques in order to meet or exceed the project stakeholders' expectations, right? Meet or exceed was something which was emphasized on. Okay. When the 2004 third edition was published, so that sentence was slightly rephrased, right? The tools, techniques required just to meet, not exceed, right? Just to meet the project requirements, right? Which is synonymous to quality parameters. So that was emphasized. And then that was the first edition on which ANSA standard logo was incorporated on the cover for the first time. Okay, so then after that, it progressed across 4th edition, 5th edition, and finally 6th edition was launched in 2017, which is one of the major milestones. Why? Because primarily, as we all know, the agile content was introduced for the first time in the 2017 6th edition. Although prior to that edition, it was mentioned or referred in some examples. However, in 2017 edition, 6th edition, if we look back, the expansion of that knowledge in terms of the agile content was included in the front or the beginning, at the beginning of every knowledge area, I would say, right, in terms of the trends and emerging practices and how to tailor the considerations depending upon whether the environment of the project is waterfall or agile. So that was a key differentiator for the 2017 edition. And now we come to the most latest version, right, which I'm sure you're all looking forward to, the 7th edition. So from the all previous versions which were process based, there was a major shift to principle based project delivery, which Abhishek just mentioned, right? That is one key point. Okay. And then the second thing is focus on value delivery, right? For over the ages, project management has been synonymous to the triple constraints and cost and quality, right? And yes, even till date, we can't deny time, cost, and quality are important. There is no doubt about it. But then there is also one very important criterion for project success, which is the focus on value delivery, which is what the customer perceives as the value, or what the performing organization or the business believes as value, right? That is something which is a primary focus on the 7th edition. So it includes 12 project delivery principles, 8 performance domains, tailoring, models, methods, and artifacts. That is how the 7th edition PMBOK is organized into. So the next subsequent slide will also show the contents in a very clear manner. That will be very clear for understanding. This is just the roadmap. So we have tried to highlight the key points here. Okay, I'm just summarizing the key considerations for PMBOK 7th edition. I think as my friend Abhishek pointed out, of course, it's the evolving project management landscape, right? How we all did project management 10, 15 years back when we started career. It is not same now, right? The industry has evolved. A lot of technology has come into play in every industry. And then advancement in software into all types of product, services, solutions. And the third one, which is also very important, transformed organization models, right? When we all did project initially, when the project management industry was in a boom, it was more localized teams who used to all be co-located, sitting together and working, right? It was communication was easy, the team structures were simple. But with the evolving project management landscape, the team structures have evolved, right? They have become larger, they have become global, right? And then the delivery approaches have become numerous, right? Waterfall to agile, and there is a lot of things in between also in the whole spectrum. So obviously the project management guide has to keep up with all these evolutionary changes. Okay, and like I mentioned, the global project teams, an array of perspectives they bring along, and the stronger need for collaboration because of the larger communication needs. So all of these key considerations were kept in mind. So then when this came into picture, it was very difficult to restrict project management into processes or being very prescriptive, right? You do this, then you get that. If you do something else, you get that, right? So it was very difficult to kind of be very restrictive to the process based. So which is when the need for putting in the overarching concepts or principles came into mind, which could probably be the guiding behaviors or attitudes which a project manager or the project management team overall can use, which would help them to perform to the best. So which was the primary differentiator or the primary trigger between the primary trigger for the release of the 7th edition. Okay, this slide we just put it to compare the key differences between the PMBOK 6th and 7th edition. So this orange band, this picture has been taken from the PMBOK 7th edition itself. It in fact compares it very well. But what we tried to put in, we just tried to put in these arrow marks and just put small explanations, which I would just take you all through now. So this orange band is the 6th edition. This blue band is the 7th edition contents, if we see. So till about 7th edition, for all the previous editions mostly, the guide to the project management body of knowledge was first, and the standard for project management was after that, and then the appendices, glossary, and index were the end. So if you see in the 7th edition, that is swapped. The standard for project management, which comprises the introduction, system for value delivery, and the 12 overarching principles, which are the concepts, that is taking precedence. That's come on the top. And the guide to the project management body of knowledge, which comprises the performance domain, the 8 performance domains. Tailoring, there is a separate section on tailoring. Models, methods, and artifacts, which are mostly considering the behaviors and attitudes of how a project management team would perform, has to perform. And then this section, that is the second section, the guide to PMBOK, actually gives the performance domains or the activities or the management capabilities of the team, right? So that is how it is slightly reorganized. So that is one key differentiator. And then 6th edition, as we all know, it is prescriptive or process based, right? It has got a collection of business processes, right? Like from across this 5 process initiating through closing. And inside this knowledge areas, if we see integration, there are several processes under integration, right, which will fall in the spectrum of each of this initiating to closing. So this is 6th edition is nothing but a collection of business processes which are very prescriptive, right? You do this and we get that, and this is the input, and if you use these tools and techniques, most probably that would be the output. So that is how it is organized, which is very clear in terms of how it can be documented, measured, and then it was corrective actions. If at all the measurement, there is a variance in the measurement, how the corrective actions could be taken. So for each processes, we more or less had these elements inside that. And we all know the process were organized across 5 process groups, right? So this is how it was there, the prescriptive. So the 7th edition, and we just saw the need for shift was the alignment with the value delivery landscape, which is why we got the 7th edition. In order to support effective project management, focus on outcomes, right? Value delivery, not just the outputs. The focus has shifted on outcomes to the customer as well as the performing organization. And then the principles, the 12 principles provide broad parameters within which the team can operate, right? These basically guides the behavior or attitude. And then we have the performance domains, interdependent management capabilities. Okay, and when we say principles and all these performance domains have come through, I would also like to make a very fair point here. The release of 7th edition does not negate the 6th edition or anything previous knowledge. The reason being, there are several industries which are still very process based, right? For instance, construction or infrastructure industries, mostly it is still process based, right? So because of that, there is due respect for the previous process-based version, which is still valid, right? The release of 7th edition does not necessarily negate the previous edition. That knowledge is valid. That's something you would like to clarify as a part of this forum. And then there is one dedicated section for tailoring. The tailoring considerations, what is there in the beginning of every knowledge area in 6th edition. The 7th edition has tried to kind of put in a separate section for tailoring. So which makes it easy to know the considerations at one place. And then there is one section on models, methods, and artifacts, which is a new section. But the content is not really that new, which is also we would like to say. In PMBOK 6th edition, we had the tools and techniques and the outputs, right, which typically contained a lot of models, right, like salience models, Stacy matrix, a lot of models we would have learned. And then methods, right? Methods like benchmarking. We have learned a lot of method, root cause analysis, and then artifacts, which are typically outputs. So the models, method, artifacts were comprised or scattered across knowledge areas in the 6th edition, right? So which was again very prescriptive. But yes, here what 7th edition has done, they have compiled a new section towards the end, which precisely enlists all the methods and models and artifacts. And then they have nicely tried to map it across the performance domains, right? A list of models, and then they have tried to map it as to where possibly this particular model could be utilized, and hence have given a choice to the project management team to utilize them as they deem fit, or how they can tailor it to their project requirements. So again, this can be also used as per the project team's requirement or tailored rather than being prescriptive. So that is one key change. Then apart from that, appendices glossary index, that is quite common. And the last and very important thing, I think most of you would have already come to know this. There is this PMI Standards Plus, which is an interactive digital platform which has got a rich and broader range of information, right, in line with the advancement and emerging trends. A lot of these knowledge which is comprised, which were a part of the previous editions, have also been compressed into that, and then that has been nicely put across approaches. One can go into that and filter it across approaches or across industry types. Like if I'm going to do a project in construction industry which is going to take an adaptive or agile delivery approach, I can filter and see what all articles or case studies are comprised in that. So it's a very interactive digital platform, so one can check it out at your leisure. So that is very useful. So that has also been put in. So this crisply covers the 6th and 7th edition key changes and the contents wise. Okay, so now I would be quickly taking you all through the 12 principles, right, which are quite important because that's one of the key element principles and performance domain, like Abhishek pointed out, have been the key changes also in the 7th edition. So the 12 principles, they are nothing but generally it's an overlap of project management and general management principles. And then the intent of putting forth these 12 principles is to generally summarize the accepted or the guiding behaviors or attitudes, which may not only be for a project manager, but for a entire project management team. Because once we go through the principles, I'm sure you would be able to appreciate this. Like all these principles can be used by the entire project management team. And also for any delivery approach, these guiding principles can be used for any delivery approach, may it be an iterative or it can be an agile, totally agile environment. But using these principles is something which can be used across a spectrum of approaches like waterfall, adaptive, hybrid, anything. And one more important aspect, these are the 12 principles. And everything is interrelated. As we see through and skim through these, I'm sure you would be able to appreciate that they're all interrelated. And then it's not like it is in any sequence, like stewardship is more important than team or team is more important than stakeholders. There is no order to it. The emphasis is equally given or placed on all the 12 principles, right? Because these are just the guiding behaviors or attitudes of a project management team. So the 12 principles are stewardship, team, stakeholders, focus on value, systems thinking, leadership, tailoring, quality, complexity, risk, adaptability, and resilience and change. Right. So I will briefly spend 1 or 2 minutes on each. So conceptually, I'm sure all of this we already have, just that the 7th edition has kind of invested immense effort in compiling it all at one place very nicely. So it's very nice. It's a very good read. So first one is stewardship, which is be a diligent, respectful, and caring steward. That's what it reads as. This figure we have taken straight away from PMBOK 7th edition because we didn't see a way how better we could cover it because it is already nicely put in a small table. Of course, followed by a write-up so that one could easily one could easily understand this. So, as we all know, with evolving landscape, projects have become complex, right? And then there could be a project could be run through several phases in a life cycle. And then it's impossible that one or two persons is responsible for the entire life cycle, right? Probably a design could be done by somebody, placing orders could be taken up by someone, actual development of the software somebody else would do, and testing or a quality team would be different, right? So what is this stewardship talk about? So there could still be somebody who will be identified as a scrum master or a agile coach, right? So that would mean like they would invest diligent care towards every aspect of the project, right, without the confines of one's own role, and will take complete responsibility to carry out the activities with integrity, care, and trustworthiness, right? That is what this whole stewardship is all about, right? So that is stewardship. Then team, the intent of this is to create a collaborative project team environment, right? As we learned a couple of slides back, project team environments have become very, very complex, large, and then the team members have diverse skills, right? Here it is not like a team of people playing the same game. So everybody has got same skill, so they could be competing, right? That is really not the case here. We have diverse skills. So how the team collaborates, and then how one collaborates with each other, and how those complementary skills can be best utilized in order to get the project outcomes. So this whole this principle of team places a lot of emphasis on how to get that done across different organizational cultures or different team skills. So that is the emphasis of team principle. The third one is stakeholders, and it reads as effectively engage with stakeholders. So I'm sure all of us know this. Why? Because it's a very, very important concept. And then if one engages with the stakeholder very well, that really determines the success of the project to a great extent. Right. And then we all are also aware like stakeholders who the mood of the stakeholders can keep on changing throughout the project also, right? Somebody who could have been a very supportive stakeholder in the beginning may or may not necessarily turn out to be the same midway or till the end of the project. So things could change. It's very, very dynamic. So that is something we are already appreciate, and then we all know, because stakeholders is something to do with people, right? It's not a process like if we do this, we will definitely get that result. So it's very hard to kind of change the mood or manipulate a stakeholder as and when we need. So it is very, very important to keep on effectively engaging with them throughout the project tenure, so that like we get the adequate support throughout the project. So that is the importance of the stakeholder. Value, focus on value. So this is very important. I would say this is one of my favorite principle, because I came across this only after 7th edition was launched, and did some real thinking as to how I can relate this to my industry. So to set a context for this, I would like to give a simple example, right? So this is for one of our client. We did a design for a nice office, and then the pandemic came. And so we have to obviously stop. We could not start construction, right? This was just when the first wave came in Mumbai. So after like things settled down, the pandemic situation started improving. Then the client came back and said, "Okay, now let us. I think the situation is better. So I think we can start the execution at site. We should still do that." So then we thought we should go back and then just revisit the design once again with the client. And I think that is the best decision we would have ever made. Why? Because I would tell you three key things that came out as an outcome of this meeting, which I think if we would have missed that meeting, we would have missed on the value the project could have delivered for the client. So when the previous design, which we did before the pandemic, had a set of uh, white writing boards, no, these glass writing boards, which typically are there in every office. So that was, of course, we also designed for a pre-pandemic scenario, so nothing wrong about it. So we put writing boards on every office. Then the client came and told us, now pandemic has stuck, and now I'm not sure till when this hybrid working environment will continue. Our folks don't even come to office. So I think when hardly they come, and then the collaboration is now mostly become virtual. So I don't think these writing boards would mean anything to my employees who or users who would eventually use the office. So I think we should migrate to something like a smart board, which could be used remotely. And then like even if they come to office, a lot of people are going to work remotely. So things could be written down and then straight away sent as a record or document to the others who could not participate because of various situations. So this was a very important suggestion, which we thought if we didn't table this meeting with the client, we would have missed. And the client also mentioned now a lot of people have gotten used to working from home. So there is we just have kept one relaxed room. So why don't we kind of integrate more relaxation spaces as a part of collaborative environment? Right, a lot of these very nice suggestions. So if I want to say, I don't, I can keep talking on and on. So I don't want to kind of eat up a lot of time on this particular principle. So a lot of value added suggestions came from the client when we did this revisiting of the design, which we thought was an eye opener, right? So eventually, why I'm trying to give this example, what I'm trying to drive at is the project management, like we mentioned, the landscape has changed from just delivering to outputs, which is time, cost, quality parameters. The shift has totally come to outcome based delivery, right? The customer has to perceive value. Your own performing organization has to perceive value, right? That is what 7th edition really drives it, right? More than the project manager perceiving value, saying like I have delivered on time, quality, and budget, but then like the product is not as useful to the customer, right? So that is something which is very important. This principle shows complete focus on that, which is very relevant to how the industry is evolving. Then the fifth one is systems thinking, which is recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions. So this is again taking paramount importance because of the evolving landscape, right? Like projects no more in like exist in silo environment, right? Projects are either interrelated or every project eventually ties to some or the other organization's goal or the customer's organization's goal. So when we kind of do a project, there are a lot of other influences which may influence the project from several directions, right? It's not just like I have done all my checklists and then now if I go and execute, everything is going to be the outcome is going to be perfect, right? That's not the case anymore, because it has got a lot of interactions with external dynamics. So a good project management team should typically be all eyes and ears to all the external influences and have a more holistic view of the how project interacts with the external situations and conditions, so that the team would be able to adapt to that. So that is systems thinking, right? So that is what this principle lays emphasis on. Then leadership, I think we don't need to elaborate much on that. We all know demonstrate leadership behaviors, right? And with the industry progressing towards being very agile, we all must be aware of high performing teams. Right now, there is no more the culture of having one project manager and he delegating the work and then rigorously monitoring the team. That culture is totally now gone to the past. No, that is not the case anymore. So we're all talking and working in a high performing teams kind of a situation, wherein teams may have complementary leadership skills, right? Somebody could be a good negotiator, somebody could be very good in having meaningful conversations with stakeholders, right? They could be very good at engaging. Somebody could be a great in conflict resolution, right? So a lot of these leadership skills, they are applicable to everybody, the project management team in general, right? Not only to the agile coach or the PM, whatever we may call him. So any project team member, that is what I have tried to kind of highlight, these green highlights, which I thought would be very good to emphasize on. Any project team member can demonstrate leadership behaviors, right? It is not just vested in the hands of one person or a project manager who's called as a project manager. And another important aspect what this principle is trying to emphasize is leadership is different from authority, right? Authority could be somebody who's actually a boss, right? Who would have the title, which is mainly to kind of have they would probably drive the effective and efficient functioning of the organization or the team, right? That could be authority, which is more like an administrative authority. Whereas leadership is something which anybody could have, any team member rather must have. So that is something the 7th edition tries to emphasize on. Tailoring, there is a separate section on tailoring, but let me touch this upon. I think tailoring is something which was very much a part of 6th edition as well. We all know, right? Each project is unique, so it is definitely not one size fit all. What we did for a X project may not be applicable for a project, right? The previous project might have been very small. We could have just had 15 stakeholders, so the engagement wasn't so difficult, or the attention a project team would have paid for analyzing or assessing the stakeholders and kind of keeping engagement strategies would not have been a very difficult effort. But then let us assume the current project is very large and then it has got complex interfaces with many external stakeholders. So obviously stakeholder engagement is something which needs tailoring here, right? Like we may need to really think how we are going to do that. So it is just the approach. Tailoring the approach can happen based upon several parameters. It can be based on the delivery approach itself. It can be based on the cadence of delivery, right? How the delivery is going to happen across stages or all at one go towards the end of the project. So tailoring can be done based upon which particular method I have to adopt, which particular process systems I have to adopt. So a lot of these things could be tailored for a project. Then quality, I think, needs no elaboration. We're all very much aware of this. Building quality into process and deliverables. Why? Because quality is synonymous to customer satisfaction. We are aware of that. That is something, that is one constraint which connects the outcome directly to the value chain, right? The project outcome, it connects directly to the value chain. So obviously, a project manager, of course, and the project team should lay emphasis on quality right from beginning, which is very important, right from starting or selecting the ingredients, right? If I have to make a soup, if I have good quality vegetables, the soup would definitely turn out to be good, right? The reverse may not be true. Reverse may or may not be true. Like if I really have bad ingredients, it's quite impossible I can get something good out of it. So that's a very simple example from day-to-day life. So quality should be built in. So that is a key principle. So right from beginning, one has to lay emphasis on quality. Then navigating complexity. Project environment is complex, right? It's a result of, it could be anything. The project itself could be complex with a lot of system interactions or external dependencies, or it could be performed in an uncertain or ambiguous environment, VUCA environment, or it could have a large group of stakeholders who are like really challenging to handle, right? So hence the project could be complex because of human behavior. So anything is possible. So the project management team has to always stay vigilant and keep on, they should be able to identify complexity right in the beginning, and then plan and develop strategies and implement them all through the project execution or throughout the project life cycle, so that the amount of complexity can be minimized. So that is one of the important principles. Optimize risk responses, that is risk, which I think is very similar to what was there in the previous versions. Nothing, so I would really not spend a lot of time on this risk. So we all know risk also has to be assessed right in the beginning, and then it has to be addressed continuously throughout the project, right? So a good project management team should always be watching out for this. Adaptability and resilience, again a very, very important attitude or behavior of a good project management team, right? One has to embrace adaptability and resilience. Why adaptability? Because we all know the project environment is not fixed. It is very, very change is the only thing which is permanent, I would say. So good project management team should be able to adapt to changing conditions in a project. And then resiliency is slightly different. Adaptability and resiliency are two different terms, although they are combined together. Adaptability is how one would be able to cope with changes in the project. By change, I don't mean customer coming and literally changing. I mean the whole dynamism in the project environment itself. Resiliency is things, anything could happen, right? Like when the pandemic came, the projects, totally there were no projects, right? The business would have undergone a trough there, right? That would have been possible. And then like because of that, the management would have kind of reduced the number of resources. Anything could have happened. So with all the constraints and after a storm has happened, how the team or how quickly the team is able to kind of step up and then uh, kind of perform to their best abilities to get the outcome. So that is something which is which this resiliency means, and resiliency is a very, very important attitude a project management team should have. Resilience is the ability to absorb impacts and to recover quickly from a setback or failure which may happen. Even if not pandemic, something majorly may go wrong on any project, right? Some unanticipated risk might trigger, and then which we didn't expect, but now we need to really quickly solve that. Otherwise, we will not be able to meet the project outcome. So anything could happen. So how resilient the project management team is, that is important. And last but not the least is change. Okay, so I would like you all to draw all your attention to enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. So this enable is a very much important keyword, I would like to say, because all our previous versions had always tried to say prevent or minimize change, and then if at all any change would happen, there was a elaborate process of change control board, and then like how like it is assessed across the constraints and then it is passed, right? Yeah, it is prescriptive. It is still applicable to many industries where if change causes waste of men and materials, definitely it is not appreciated, right? That is something we know. But here the keyword is enable change, right? So enabling change can also be for the good, right? A structured approach to change can help individuals and organization transition very nicely from the current state to future desired state. So how the project management team would be able to embrace a change by kind of seeing like what are the impacts and how best we could adapt and embrace that in the project environment, so that the focus on the outcomes, right, which is what this whole 7th edition, one of the important focus on the outcomes. So if the change would definitely be a key player in getting a positive outcome to the project, that is something a project management team must be willing to embrace and accept. So that is what this principle of change talks about. So this more or less covers all the principles, 12 principles, which we just now wanted to discuss. So with this, I would again hand over back to Abhishek. He would be covering the performance domains. Abhishek, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Preetha. Okay, so before we get on to the performance domains, I would like to take 2-3 minutes again to reiterate the things which we feel, which we find that this is a critical idea which has to be driven across everyone. The first and the foremost, again, this is a repetition, but it is important. That's why we are repeating it. So previously we had process prescriptive based kind of approach, and now we are having principles based approach. So 12 principles which already Preetha has covered. So as a project manager or as a individual who is working for a project, I can use any model, I can use any method, I can use any approach or artifact. But those approaches, those artifacts, those models, they have to be validated against these 12 principles. Now those principle part is cleared now. Now we are going to performance domains. So I as a project manager or I as a team member, project team member, what work should I do? How should I do? That particular information is kind of detailed or mentioned in the performance domains. So in performance domains, basically whatever the activities are mentioned over there or whatever detailing is done, it is kind of the project managers in their project, they must be doing something more than this also. But this is something which is bare minimum, which is expected that a project manager should do for their particular project. Again, one more thing, I am reiterating it. This was informed previously. I am reiterating it again. That now there is another shift in the project management or in the PMBOK is that previously the PMBOK focus was only on project manager. Now it is not just project manager but the project team also. So how the project team has to work, how the project team should coordinate with each other. The focus is over there also, not just the project manager's work. So we will. So there are 8 performance domains, and through these 8 performance domains, all the work that is done to handle or deliver a particular project, that is kind of explained over here. So we will go through them one by one, and once these 8 performance domain, this particular content gets completed, then we'll go through the tailoring and models and artifacts, etc. So yeah, Preetha, if we can go ahead. Yeah. So the first performance domain is the stakeholder performance domain. So we have to engage with the stakeholder in a more proactive way. That is one of the principles that we have already seen in one of the 12 principles. But considering that particular principle, what activities we should do, what work we have to do, that is kind of detailed in this particular performance domain. So in order to align with them, in order to engage with them, how constantly we have to be in touch with them, and if we have to share the project status, project report, how we should do it. If there are good many number of stakeholders, how to manage them. If the stakeholders are challenging, what to do and how to handle them. So all this entire information is covered in this performance domain. If you see on the left corner of the presentation, if you see, that is how the stakeholder engagement is that is you first try to identify the stakeholder. The identification of stakeholder is not do at the beginning of the project. It is something that we do this we kind of we identify the stakeholder throughout the project, and after understanding them, we analyze them, and on the basis of analysis we try to prioritize them. So if in your particular project there are around 50 to 60 stakeholders, it is not possible for you or the team members to focus on all of them. So there may be few stakeholders who are very, very critical for your project. So it makes sense that you spend more time on those stakeholders. There are stakeholders who are who are not really who are not really getting impacted from your project. The impact is very, very less, and they are also not very interested in your project. So it doesn't make sense that you spend too much time on them. So that kind of basic understanding is kind of explained in the stakeholder performance domain. Yeah, Preetha, next slide.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
The next one is team performance domain. So now previously we had just one project team and the project team used to work together. But now if you see from edition 6 onwards, the focus is more on teams that are diverse. So globalization is happening. And internationally, if you see in a particular project, you have team members who are from very diverse cultures, diverse geographies, diverse languages. Now if the team is kind of from such a diverse background, so how to ensure that they come together, they share the ideas with each other, there is a respect, there is a mutual respect among themselves. So mutual respect and those things have to be inculcated in them. So how to inculcate this respect and mutual trust among all the team members, and after doing that, how to ensure that they are on the track and they perform their task. And also we have to ensure that whatever the project objectives are there, those have to be understood by the team. So how to take ahead these things, that is kind of explained over here. Initially, whatever the project's responsibility was with the project manager. All the buck stops at the project manager. Project manager looks after everything. But now the idea that is being brought forward is that the sense of ownership should not be there just in the project manager, but also it should be there with all the team members. Everyone should feel that I am responsible for this particular project and I have to contribute for this project in my through best of my abilities. And once all the team members, they kind of have that kind of sense in them, then it is said that the project get executed in a very better way. So more focus should be on the team members and their interaction, and that is the key for the team performance. Okay, we can go to the next slide. The next one is a development approach and the life cycle performance domain. So let me kind of state this again. What is the need of this performance domain? So as I have told, the performance domain, main thing is the principles are the broad principles. They are the guiding principles. They guide the project manager. They guide the team, how you have to execute the project. But what exactly you have to do, what work you have to do as a project manager, that is kind of detailed in the performance domains. So that is what we are going. We have seen the stakeholder and other thing. Now we'll see with respect to development approach and with respect to life cycle, what activities project manager and the team have to do. The first and the foremost, it is depending on the project, you have to choose the life cycle and you have to choose the development approach. Whether the development approach has to be predictive or it has to be adaptive, incremental, iterative, or hybrid. I mean, first of all, that team has to come together and they have to discuss it. What are the objectives of the project? What are the outcomes of the project? Or once these things are cleared, on the basis of this decision, the team has to decide what development and life cycle approach they have to adopt. Because this particular development life cycle or this life cycle or this particular approach is going to kind of drive your entire project work and everything. So those things have to. So at the beginning of the project itself, you have to take this decision, and then you have. If your changes in a project, if there are changes which are kind of they occur at a very regular at a very regular pace, and if you have to do the change is not very expensive. If you have to do the rework is not very expensive. Then it makes sense to have an adaptive kind of approach. If you have a project in which your scope is very clear, the technological risks are very, very low, and you have a good domain experience, and the rework is kind of expensive, then at times it becomes more sense to have a waterfall kind of an approach for delivery. Take for example, in construction. In construction, it is not possible to do the rework again and again. It's very, very expensive. then at times it makes sense to have a waterfall model kind of approach in construction industry. Also, usually it happens in IT industry that doing the changes or doing the rework is not very expensive. So that's why the adoption of adaptive methodology or agile methodology is more in software industry. So on the basis of your requirement and everything, the team along with the project manager has to decide that what approach we have to take. Yeah, Preetha, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
So the planning performance domain. So once you are at a high level, got you have finalized the approach, you have finalized the life cycle. Then comes the detailing part. How the planning is to be done. Has the is the planning is to be done through what we call through progressive elaboration, or it makes a sense to have a planning. You need to have a detailed planning. If it is kind of a waterfall model and your scope and everything is kind of clear, then you can have a detailed plan in the beginning itself, and through that particular baseline you can execute the project. So how the activities will be delivered and how the activities will be planned, all those things are to be finalized. There are certain scenarios in which you need to have an approach through which a part of your project life cycle will be waterfall based and a part of your activities, they are driven through adaptive methodology. So those kind of hybrid approaches can also be taken ahead. Next slide, please. So for now the project work performance domain. Once you have done the planning, you have to actually work on the project. So how the work is to be delivered? How in order to deliver the particular work, you have to handle the resources. How you have to handle? How can you handle the resource in a more better way? That kind of that is emphasized in this particular performance domain. Also there may be a requirement to do the procurement. So if the particular procurement is to be done, what are the efficient ways through which you can do the procurement? So all those things are kind of emphasized over here, and there are various artifacts and everything is mentioned through which you can kind of control the work, and you can ensure that work is done in a proper way. So there are particular processes through which a work has to be developed. Is there a need in the project that the developers or the people who are working on the project, they should collaborate and they should interact in a more efficient way? If that is required, then what should be their seating arrangement, how they should sit, how they should interact? That has to be kind of it has to be detailed. If there is no demand for team members to interact with each other, and if they are supposed it is not possible to co-locate them, so in that scenario, how to ensure that they interact with each other, there is no communication barrier, or how to remove the communication barrier, what are the things and activities needs to be done? So those things are emphasized in this particular performance domain. Next one, the delivery performance domain. So if you see, the previous performance domain was more focused on how actually you have to work on the project, how the software, or if you're in construction industry, how a particular deliverable has to be constructed. Over here, the focus is more on the quality aspect of the delivery. So that is whatever you have created, is it meeting the acceptance criteria of the customer? So you need to have a process through which you can do the quality check. Also, if your deliverables are not proper, they are failing or they are defective, how to ensure that the next deliverables that you get, they are not defective as the previous ones? So do you have so how to do the trend analysis, and on the basis of trend analysis, how to ensure that your process gets improved again and again? If you are having an iterative process or incremental process, how your processes are your processes improving or not? That thing is to be focused. How to improve that, how to collect data, that particular detailing is done in this performance domain. Please go ahead. Measurement performance domain. So whatever the work is being done, how to measure it, what are the metrics for it? After measuring the metrics, how they have to be recorded, what are the units, all those things are kind of detailed. Also, what is the timely criteria? Should we collect the sample data from our deliverables on a weekly basis or on daily basis? How the work performance data is collected? That kind of information is captured in measurement performance domain. You need to ensure that whatever metrics you have, I mean, it is a trend now. It is said that whatever metrics you deploy, rather than it should not be a trailing kind of a metric. It should be, the metric should inform that what is going to happen in future. Are we going to get more defects or not? So if your metrics can inform and give information, they give some kind of prediction for future, those metrics are kind of good. So if that kind of metrics you deploy, I mean, it is considered a great thing. For example, you have burn up charts, burn down charts, you have EVM. So these are methodologies through which you can kind of give the information how the project deliverables they will be delivered down the line for the future iterations or future increments. Next slide. Sorry, in this slide there is a mistake. This is regarding uncertainty performance domain, but the title is different. Apologies for that. So every project has some kind of uncertainty. There are uncertainties which are known unknowns, and there is something called as unknown unknowns. Take for example, known unknowns, which are another term for them is the risk. So how to handle these risks? How to handle the uncertainties? What are your fallback plans? Do you have a contingency reserve for these uncertainties? So all these things are kind of detailed over here. Take for example, a project construction work is going on. In this construction work, you know that in the month of June, July, there will be rains. So you have a contingency reserve for this particular risk. So this is considered as a known unknown. Okay, so you know there is a risk, but you don't really know the probability and impact. I mean, you have a vague idea, but you really don't know exactly how much impact will be there. And then suppose your construction and you have listed down all the risk, but something or the other comes up which you had not anticipated that this particular risk will come. Take for example, construction work is planned to go from December to May, but in the month of January there are rains, and due to those rains, all your construction materials, they have spoiled. I mean, they have been a bit destroyed. Now this you had never anticipated, because in the geography where you are where the work is going on, there was never a rain in the month of January, but unfortunately due to some reason rains happened. Now this particular risk has happened. This is an issue, and damage has been done, and for that you need to kind of take care of those damages. So that becomes a part of unknown unknowns. So for unknown unknowns, how will you manage them? How will you manage that particular damage? So you have a budget for such kind of risk or not? So that is kind of it has to be decided by the team, and some contingency reserve or some fallback plan should be there. So through this, and down the line, these days you also hear a new term called as VUCA, which is a project scenario which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So as the industry is changing, again, there are new things coming in the market, new competitive things are coming, competition is getting more stringent. So VUCA is the kind of a scenario for which the project managers and the project team has to be ready. So for VUCA kind of a scenario, what kind of planning will you do? What kind of artifacts will you use? How will you keep tab on the customer requirements and the new upcoming risk? So all those things are kind of discussed, and there are some guiding guidance is given for this particular aspect in this particular performance domain. Now we'll go to the next slide, and then we'll see the concept of tailoring. So the concept of tailoring, it was there in edition 5, it was emphasized in edition 6, and now you can see it in edition 7 also. It is, you have seen this particular concept in one of the principles also. So what is tailoring? The concept is very what we call it's very simple. So some guy, PMBOK or PMI is kind of giving you principles and ideas how the project is to be executed. But should you use all the principles? Should you use all the processes that have been given to you for your project, and has it to be used in the particular prescriptive way how PMI has informed to you? So the answer is no. The thing is that you have to understand what are the best practices, and on the basis of your understanding, you need to check what is required for your project. If your project is small, there it may not. I mean, there is no need to have all the processes deployed. But if your project is huge, there are good amount of risk, and there is good amount of very high value is at risk, then the chances are high that it may require that you should have a more stringent process for your particular project. So first of all, you understand the need of your project, and on the basis of that, you cherry pick the elements from PMI or from the PMBOK and then use it. That is nothing. That is what is the tailoring. Now, why tailoring? Projects are never similar. All the projects are different. They are unique. Being unique is one of the characteristic of a project. So that's why, because all the projects are different, the needs and requirements of projects are different, and that's why on the basis of your requirement you have to tailor. So what to do for tailoring? So how to go ahead with the tailoring is explained in the image that you can see. First of all, at the organizational level, what are the guiding principles? So at the organizational level, the organization can decide for so and so characteristic, the projects having so and so characteristics, they should use so and so processes. For the projects with so and so characteristics and this many risks, they should use this particular way of project execution, and this level of process tailoring should be done. So like this way, at the organizational level, first of all, it has to be decided that what kind of processes and how it has to be deployed. Once that is done, post that, for your for your particular project or for your particular team, how the processes have to be deployed, that is kind of it has to be understood and it has to be considered. And then at the organizational level, some guidance is given. Then at the project level, you have a guidance, and on the basis of that, you choose the artifacts, you choose the templates, you choose the processes, and you deploy it for your project to give the project outcomes. So that is the concept of tailoring, and PMI is pretty proud of this aspect, that they have kind of they have focused on this particular and kind of elaborated this particular term for the industry. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, so now we have something called as model, methods, and artifacts. So model is an overarching term, and then we have method, and then we have artifacts. So model is a thinking strategy to explain a process, framework, or phenomenon. So model at a high level, it informs you how a particular project is to be delivered. Now take for example process groups. Process groups is what? Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing. So these particular process group, they are a form of a model. This is a model through which you can execute your project. For team management, you have something called as Tuckman ladder. So Tuckman ladder is also one of the model through which you manage the team. So if you know, in the Tuckman ladder, you have a team which goes through multiple stages. That is, first it is forming, then storming, norming, performing, adjourning, like this way. So these are the models which give an overarching guidance for the project. So you need to first of all finalize what are those models and how the models are to be chosen. That is elaborated in PMBOK 7. So once you elaborate the model, then you go at a more granular level. What are the methods that you'll use to achieve a particular outcome or a particular output or a result? Means you have to. Your project is an agile project. For your agile project, you have to go ahead with an estimation process. You have to complete the estimation of all user stories. So how to do that? So you have a method which is called as wideband Delphi method. You can use this particular method to complete the estimation. If you have to take a decision, what are the methods which are available in the industry for it? What kind of voting is available? So you can choose them and you can utilize it. So in edition 7, PMBOK has given multiple models, methods, and artifacts. So these are kind of detailed, and those are kind of these are the best methods and models which are used in the industry. But these are just for the indicative purpose. It doesn't mean that you have to use only these methods and models It just needs that discuss you. So if in your organization, if you feel something else can be used, you are free to use it. There may be other models and methods also in the industry. Now, if we go to the artifacts is again for your particular project. If you are using a particular template or a particular document, that is the artifact. So you have multiple kind of register. You have risk register, you have stakeholder register, you have requirements documentation. So there must be a particular format or a particular way through which you capture this information. So those become artifacts for your project. So there are a few critical artifacts which are kind of detailed in section 7, which can be used. If you have to capture the user stories, what are the ways to capture the user story? How should you capture it? What should be there in the user story? How the user story should be written? So like this way, there are multiple artifacts which are kind of devised and documented in PMBOK 7. I think so. Again, this particular image that you can see over here, it gives you how you use. If you see on the top, there are the principles. These are the guiding principles. So whatever methods, models, whatever you are using, they should adhere. I mean, they should adhere to these principles. That is what is the expectation of PMI. And then on the basis of models and methods that you can see, you apply them through your performance domain. I'm repeating again that what is a performance domain? Performance domain is nothing but a project manager. If project manager has to work for delivering delivering the project outcomes or the delivering the objectives, what work, how the work has to be done, that is detailed in the performance domains. So you have principles and then you have performance domains. Performance domains will consume these models and methods. They will use these models and methods, and then they will give the outputs. And you can see in the output, you have the deliverable, and those deliverables will be given through artifacts. Artifacts are nothing but the templates. So these templates, these deliverables will be given. So this particular image, it kind of, gives you at a high level how you can use model artifacts through the performance domain and then deliver the. So with this kind of our presentation is kind of almost complete. There was someone, the question was there on VUCA. So VUCA is nothing but there is a term in industry which means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So usually army, they work in this VUCA kind of a scenario where everything is uncertain. So it is considered that the project managers in the future, they should be ready for such kind of scenarios where everything is unpredictable and complex. So that is what is VUCA. Okay, so I think so. We have completed the presentation. So it's time for a break, and probably post break we can have a discussion and a Q&A session. Preetha, anything you want to add?
No, Abhishek, I think I think you have well covered the other three things: performance domains, tailoring and models, artifacts. I think, yeah, it's a good idea to just give a break, 10 minutes break, and then reconvene for open discussions.
Thank you, Preetha and Abhishek. Let's take a small break of 10 minutes. Whether 10
Mhm.
minutes is okay?
Yeah, I think it is about 11:15 now. I think that should be okay. We should be back by
We can
11:25.
meet at around 10:20 then.
Yeah, 11.
11:20, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
thanks.
Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, thank you.
इसलिए याद रखना जब भी ये पैटर्न बनेगा, हालांकि ये पैटर्न बहुत रेयर बनता है हर किसी में नहीं, लेकिन जब भी ये पैटर्न बनेगा, वो जो लो है यहाँ पे 17,318 का वो जो लो है, दैट लो विल प्ले इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट.
Welcome all. After a small break, let's have a question answer session. Please provide your feedback in the chat box. Thank you. No, Preetha, you are not audible.
Sure, we'll start. Abhishek, can we start? Am I audible now? I think I was on mute. I
Yes,
didn't
Yeah,
realize.
you are audible.
Okay.
yes, you're audible.
Okay. So, Abhishek, I can see some questions already being posted on the chat window. So I'll probably read the questions. There are some comments as well, but yeah, let me just read the questions and then we will try to address it and see if there are more questions in that.
Sure.
I think there is one question, how PMP 7th edition will be different from ACP as it seems alignment with agile principles. Kindly 85. That's the first question. So I think being an agile expert, do you want to take it on?
Okay, agile expert,
You,
I would
yeah,
claim that term, but
of course.
yes, so agile ACP, so ACP is kind of focused on one particular area of project management. So ACP is totally focused only on the thing that with agile methodology, Scrum methodology, XP, and etc. How the projects can be executed. It focuses on that. So it has a very limited what it has a limited scope, but that is not the case with PMP. PMP is kind of it takes care of a waterfall model also, and it takes care of agile also.
Correct.
Because waterfall is relevant in today's industry. I mean, we cannot just say that no one does project
Everything
to
is gone
waterfall
agile.
model. That will be absolutely wrong. Good. Yes. So everything has not gone till the time everything is not agile. There will be relevance of PMP and there will be relevance of ACP. So both are separate. And PMP kind of it covers more bigger scope. It covers agile also and it covers waterfall also. I mean that is my view.
Right. Yeah, I think that's perfect. So that's what, like you just mentioned, PMP still covers a spectrum of approaches, right? And whereas ACP is very much detailed on the agile principles, right? So that is something I think which we have to appreciate. So still the PMP's relevance holds good. And there is one next question: how the changes in PMBOK 7 are likely to impact how the changes in PMBOK are likely to impact other basic standards, that is program and portfolios. So in our view, I think that it is not impacting adversely. Rather, I think this overall systemic view and the focus on outcomes rather kinds of unites the concept, and these 12 guiding principles are something I think probably we should have made a mention. It is not only applicable for any type of project delivery approach. These guiding principles, attitudes, and behaviors are in fact applicable to programs, portfolios also, right? So it is in fact kind of, I would say these principles can even encompass those things. So there is no straight away any impact on program or portfolios. And one more mention we would like to make is we just touched upon PMI Standards Plus, right? PMI Standards Plus is now available for reference online, right? Just mentioned in the PMBOK 7. Over and above the 12 guiding principles in the 8 performance domains, for additional references, they have given a standards and guides, which are resources which can be downloaded online by anybody who's a PMI member. So that still, in fact, separately calls out the standards for program and the standards for portfolio management, which are anyway separate guides, kind of preserving their sanctity till date. So yes, of course, these principles are applicable. In fact, encompasses application across several projects or portfolios. So that is how we would like to address it. Abhishek, you would want to add anything on that?
No, I mean, you have explained it pretty much the same thing. I mean, the only thing I want to add is that previously all, whether it is project or program or portfolios, they were prescriptive. Now we are having principle-based approach. So same thing will be for program and portfolio also. So that is the direction that I can see.
Right. Okay. Let me see any more questions. I can see feedback links. I'm just coming down. Okay. What's the requirement? There's one question which says, what's the requirement of bringing concept of performance domain in this edition?
Sorry, requirement of bringing performance domains.
Okay. Yeah, what's the requirement for bringing the concept of performance domain in this edition?
Yeah, so it is not just a performance domain. If you see, principles have also been introduced. So this, I think so, the entire model is changed. So the idea is that now we are introducing principles, which is kind of an umbrella guideline. Now, along with the umbrella guideline, some specifics are to be given, and those specifics are mentioned in the performance domain. I mean, that is what I can see.
Correct. So if you recall, the PPT had one slide on comparison between 6th and 7th edition, right? The 6th edition did have knowledge areas which are very, very prescriptive, right? Like which had all the processes under each knowledge area. And but yes, with the 7th edition release, there has been a migration towards a systemic view to kind of be in line with the evolving landscape. So conceptually, there are a lot of the knowledge from the knowledge areas have been taken, and then they have been combined in something called as a performance domain, which enlists a broader, which gives a broader idea for the project management team to kind of utilize the guiding behavior given by the principles to apply that across project activities, which is what is guided by the performance domain, the 8 performance domain. So that is how we would like to put it across. So that is why this concept has been introduced. And I think there is one question, Abhishek, just an outflow of the PPT itself. Your one of the slide had that the stakeholder slide had that cyclic diagram, right? Starting from engaging with the stakeholder, assessing, and then identifying, assessing, and engaging. There was a cyclic loop. I think there is one question on that. That does this diagram replace stakeholder engagement metrics from earlier version? So Abhishek, you want to take that, or I can address it also?
You can address.
Okay, so see, actually, it really, like we mentioned, this 7th edition really doesn't replace anything. Rather, in fact, if you go down in the models, methods, and artifacts, all the processes are in the models methods has enlisted all of the models which were covered as a part of tools, techniques, outputs in the previous PMBOK versions. It is just a different kind of representation, but if you really one would take a closer look at what that cyclic diagram said, I think the content was exactly similar to what was covered in the earlier version, right? The steps are similar, identifying, understanding, then analyzing stakeholders, then prioritizing with whom to engage, then engage and monitor. So I think the diagrammatic representation is maybe looking slightly different, but then it is conceptually, the concept is very similar. So that is how we would like to address that. Okay, I think there is some question on VUCA, I think, which you already clarified. You saw the chat window, right? What VUCA stands for, I think you already clarified, volatile, uncertainty. So that is that. I'm just going down. There is one question: adopting agile approach in construction projects can lead contractors go bankrupt. It should be waterfall approach mostly, if not hybrid. Okay, so I think I can address it better being from the industry. Yes, I think whoever asked that question, I think it's a great question. So construction industry, like, yes, I think when Abhishek in one of his slides, he did mention it is industry is where doing something and undoing would cause a lot of waste. It is very agile approach, maybe very hard to adopt, which is right. But yes, having said that, I would also like to say there are several agile concepts which could still be utilized very successfully in the construction industry. If I have to quickly recall and think of some, which are typically agile concepts. There is this agile concept which is fail fast, right? Fail fast and learn fast, right? That is one concept which is very much evolving in the construction industry also now, right? Instead of building everything and then kind of finally going wrong and realizing like we have gone wrong and we are going to undo things and redo things, we can kind of, there are like these tools like mocking up or prototyping. Those things are extensively used, right? Visiting a vendors or contractors factory to see how work is going on, right? To arrest those early failures. So those kind of agile concepts are going lean, right? So these kind of concepts are still emerging in the industry. And then of course with diversified teams, virtual collaboration, so that is also the need for high performing teams and team with broader T-shaped skills. These are some of the things which definitely are some agile concepts which are also still applicable to the construction industry. But yes, literally like how in a software project, Abhishek rightly pointed out, doing changes is less costlier than handing over a wrong product to the customer at the end and then realizing we have to undo a lot of things. But yes, in construction projects, it is reverse. We cannot kind of build and then go wrong and break. So that is more expensive. So the ideal way is to kind of definitely have 100% or at least near 100% scope clarity, so that mostly to either be a waterfall or an agile approach, right? So that is how we would like to address. And
May I
most,
add something?
yeah,
Preetha?
sure, Abhishek.
Yeah. Most of the time during training, it is my experience that participants, they confuse agile methodology with Scrum methodology. I mean, what I mean is they think that Scrum methodology is the agile methodology. Agile is Scrum. That is, in my view, it is not correct. Agile is, again, it's a broader kind of an umbrella term, and within agile you have various other methodologies like XP, Crystal, DSDM, and Scrum is also one of them. And it is not that if you are not having user story based kind of a delivery and you cannot if you do not have sprints, that doesn't mean that because you cannot have those things in construction industry, you cannot be agile. In my view, that is not correct. If you see, there are many YouTube videos and articles are being written how agile methodologies have been adopted by the construction industry. So, I mean, Preetha, you have already given an example. Now, another example is like, what is lean? Lean basically focuses of. So, if you kind of focus on removal of waste from your construction, so
Right.
like constant rework which is happening, you are avoiding the rework and all those things, so you are being agile in that. If you are having daily scrum for your construction projects also, coming together for 15 minutes and they discuss what is being done, what is planned, and concept you already utilizing it. So yeah, I mean, everything you cannot utilize it, but some of the things already construction industry is kind of adopting.
Yes, I think he brought in one another very nice example of daily scrum meetings, right? We also do it like sunrise, sunset meetings is what we call. I think that really helps in terms of catching up with the team quickly for 10 minutes to see like to align the team well with what are the things to be done for today or to-do list for today, rather than waiting for the weekly progress review meeting, which is typically thing of the construction industry, right? People wait for the weekly meeting, they come and say, I haven't got that, I haven't got this, and then 1 week has gone waste, right? So now I think the construction industry has progressed a lot. It has come much advanced than that, and yes, we do have these sunrise sunset meetings. And I think value stream mapping was a very good point which I think Abhishek got in, which is especially eliminating waste, right? Eliminating waste in terms of production. The construction industry also involves a lot of supply items, right? Like furniture, which typically involves a lot of production. So how those processes can be kind of improved. So a lot of agile concepts can definitely be utilized in the industry. But yes, the entire project, of course, will not be agile because requirements cannot be so flexible, or we don't have a chance of changing things at the end of every release. So that is something, yes, we need to appreciate. Okay, so there is one more question. somebody, no, I think it's not a question, but somebody has just tried to kind of, Rahul Shah has tried to kind of summarize. Can we say that principles are nothing but what needs to be achieved, whereas performance domain are nothing but how needs to be achieved? Yes, performance domains are synonymous to how things needs to be achieved. Principles are, I wouldn't say what needs to be achieved, I would say the principles guide the behavior, which when inculcated in every project team member would definitely be beneficial in achieving that how, right? Which ideally is covered in the performance domain. That is how I would like to put it across. In my view, performance domain is deep dive, detailed execution phase. I would, yes, it has got execution phase, but yes, it has got, there are some things, some elements of the performance domains or some particular domains which has got thorough focus on planning as well, right? The selecting delivery approach and all is very much initiation planning. And then I think Abhishek also touched on the measurement bit, which is very much synonymous to what was covered in the monitoring process group earlier. So it encompasses the entire life cycle, right? That is something we would like to say. Okay, there is one question from Prasanna Kumar. 7th edition mentions about resiliency. Yes, that's a principle. How is it different from risk response methodology adopted in organizations so far? Okay, so these two are slightly different. Abhishek, you want to address it or should I take it on, Abhishek?
I can take this up.
There is.
So
okay, so you got the question right. I think I was clear. I think Prasanna Kumar wants to understand difference between resiliency as a principle and risk response methodology, which I think all of us are aware of already.
correct. So I mean, what I have understood is that risk response is like once if suppose the risk occurs, risk happens, then what you should do. That is the risk response. But resiliency is like your project, is it flexible enough so that whatever the risk will come, it will not impact your objectives. So it is like it is going one step ahead. I mean, rather than planning risk response, you go one step ahead and you check how resilient your project is, that it can handle whatever risk is there. I mean, that is what my understanding was.
Right.
I mean,
So,
Preetha, if you can add.
Right. So I think that's right. So just to add on, so even if something happens, the time period resiliency is how quickly one can bounce back, right? That is something which the principal focuses on, how well prepared the project management team is to quickly bounce back, the time period taken to kind of step up and then still kind of walk towards achieving those project outcomes. So that is resiliency, right? Risk is more the thing which has happened and the methodology which you are devising, or you are anticipating some risk to be happened and you are trying to devise a methodology for avoiding that. And resiliency, like if something has happened, it is a function of time or effort, how quickly one can bounce back, right? So the project team's efficiency is good if we say like if they bounce back very quickly, if they are like, that's when the resiliency is supposed to be good. Okay, there is one another question. Okay, I think this is a question which typically candidates also ask, so let me cover it. Is PMBOK 7th edition a standalone reference material, or it needs to be used along with PMBOK 6th edition for PMP exam prep? You want to take this on, Abhishek?
No, you can take it, Preetha.
Okay, so I would just give a brief how the new exam content is. The PMI has organized the new exam content based on something called as exam content outline, ECO. Okay, they are none of these, I would say, in fact, when this ECO was launched, PMBOK 7th edition was still under preparation, right? So like I mentioned, the upcoming of PMBOK 7th edition does not negate 6th edition. So the PMO's new exam, that's the PMP new exam, is very much in line with the PMI's new exam content outline, which can be got from the website itself, right? So, and that doesn't really call out for one has to refer PMBOK 7 or 6. So, and because both these are knowledge, more like a guides, like these are not direct exam reference material, like only reading this would enable a candidate to pass the exam. So that is why I would like to address the questions. But yes, with a lot of agile concepts and a lot of emphasis on people, because the new PMP exam content outline lays a lot of emphasis on people domain, people process, and business environment are 3 domains, of which people domain gets a weightage of about 50, right? So, which obviously a lot of these are in line with the evolving project management scenario. So even going through PMBOK 7 is glancing it through is a good idea. We wouldn't say no, but 6th, like we mentioned in the webinar as well, the launch of 7 did not negate the 6th edition. And the PMBOK 7th edition, if we go through the models, methods and artifacts section, still refers to the planning process and all the process groups, which is very much covered in the 6th edition. So one may have to refer back, even if one is referring to 7th edition, they have to necessarily refer back to 6th edition as well to understand the process groups. So 7th edition also doesn't negate 6th edition. But just to summarize or clear this thing around PMP exam, the exam is based upon the new exam content outline, neither on PMBOK 7th edition or 6th edition, but yes, both are good reference guides. And when the new exam content outline was launched, PMBOK 6th edition was in prevalence, right? That is also something we would like to mention. Can anyone with waterfall project experience apply for ACP exam? So somebody from the construction industry or infrastructure industry, can they apply for a PMP exam? Is the ACP exam is the question.
Yeah, of course they can.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Of course you can. So if you want to learn, if you want to improve on something, of course you can, from waterfall industry also you can appear for it. And after gaining the certification, you will get more ideas how you can use those concepts in your industry or in your domain.
Yeah. Okay. To simplify, am I right in saying PMBOK 7th edition wants the PMO leadership team to be more flexible and not bogged down by prescriptive requirement? It depends purely upon the industry of practice, because there is no straightforward answer for this. But yes, there's a lot of flexibility. But yes, if your own industry or your own organization is very prescriptive with the systems and process really established, right, then the PMO leadership would have to tailor their approach accordingly. That's how I would say. But yes, that's a good amount of it's a good read actually. It doesn't look like a guide. The 7th edition looks like a nice storybook. So yes. Yes, should one read both PMBOK 6 and 7? Yes, definitely. If one needs to understand the process groups, 6th edition is a great reference material.
So, I mean, if I may add for this particular comment, so usually it used to happen is that whenever a new edition is introduced, the previous edition is kind of considered as a redundant kind of a thing. But now the scenario is that even though PMBOK has gone ahead with the principles and performance domain approach, there are the projects which are driven through waterfall model. For them, PMBOK 6 is very, very relevant. The processes and all the things which are mentioned. And because the number of projects which are kind of executed through waterfall model, they are kind of sizable projects. So that's why PMBOK 6 is not negated. I mean, what Preetha is saying again and again. So PMBOK 6 is not considered as a redundant or negative kind of a thing. And the reference for PMBOK 6 in a way is kind of mentioned in PMBOK 7 also through process groups. So you have to go through the idea.
Because you have already got a very good knowledge of all the process. So that is working to your advantage. That's how I'll put it. But yes, in terms of the new exam content, like I just mentioned some time back, it is based on the PMI's new exam content outline, which has got some like 50% weightage for the people domain. Process domain is 42 and business environment is 8%. So 42 plus 8 again becomes 50. So that 50% one would already have a very good idea because PMBOK 6 covers that to a great extent. So the remaining 50% people is something which somebody who would have undergone the training as per the previous edition might not be adept with. So in order to make up for that knowledge, yes, definitely the training as per the new exam content outline has to be taken up. That would be really beneficial. Okay, I think Abhishek, this again question on ACP DSSM, I would just read it. So for you to address, being PMP certified and working in waterfall environment, which course should I go for? PMI ACP or DSSAM or PMI RMP? Is ACP project focused and DSDM business focused? Please elaborate. So basically, it is Sachin is asking for like he's already PMP certified and works in a waterfall environment and wants to know if at all he wants to refine his knowledge, whether risk management professional is better or ACP or DSSM, which one is something which we could mention. But to my best of understanding, yeah, Abhishek, I will leave you because you have a lot of knowledge on ACP and DSSM.
No, it is not that I have lot of knowledge, but yes, I would like to give some guidance on that. So, ACP is like it's an umbrella term. It's all the agile methodologies you can learn through that. That's a good thing you can do. RMP is more focused on risk that you can decide if your work requirement that you should have a good experience in risk. DASM and different agile senior scrum master, it is a different ballgame altogether. DASM and DSSM, they do not really focus on one particular methodology. Rather than that, they focus on family of methodologies, and it gives you guidance that in which scenario which methodology is to be used. So for example, you have information that you have a team of 10 to 12 people, you have a project which is kind of having good number of it is kind of drastically the requirements are coming. So what we should use, should we use a continuous integration delivery kind of a thing, or should we use agile, or we should use waterfall? So that kind of guidance is given in disciplined agile at the organization level. Again, Scrum methodology, XP, these are for one team. But disciplined agile is a kind of a scaled methodology. It is to be handled at the organization level. So the scope of disciplined agile is totally different. And what is kind of explained in Agile Certified Professional or ACP, it is different. ACP is for single team. Disciplined agile is for multiple team. It is for organization. So again, I would there is no straight answer that what kind of certification you should do. But I would request that you go through a detail of all these certification, and then you decide that what does justice, and then can take this ahead. I mean, Preetha, if you
Yeah, I think you covered it well. Does disciplined agile cover ACP? That's another question. I think maybe from Sachin itself.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Uh, so yes, discipline agile covers ACP, but as I told, it doesn't cover ACP in detail. So discipline agile does not cover only it covers multiple other methodologies also. The focus in discipline agile is that in which scenario what particular tool or methodology is to be used. So that is kind of focused over there. So you will if you are doing discipline agile for that particular certification, you should know, I mean, agile is definitely covered, but it is not covered in such a detailed manner as it is covered in ACP. ACP is very, very detailed with respect to agile, but in discipline agile, it only high level information is given.
Okay. So next question, exam content outline published in May 2020. Is it expected to change soon? Okay, see, this is something PMI only can answer. But yes, what is something we would like to say here is the PMI doesn't change the exam content outline every time a new edition of PMBOK gets released, right? So and then it's not like today they will say and immediately change it say 3 months down the line, and then there generally there is a good amount of sunset period for the current exam content outline. So we don't see a direct relationship between publishing of or a release of PMBOK 7, which would immediately invoke a change on the exam content outline. But yes, that is something obviously PMA has to say, but then we don't see immediately, like, and then I would like to reinforce, like, every time an edition changes doesn't mean exam content outline would immediately change, right? So that is something we would like to clarify. There's one more question. Waterfall approach seems insignificant as per 7th edition, even though waterfall is widely used across globe, where scope is fixed and no change applicable. Kindly clarify. Waterfall approach is not become insignificant. I think that is something I would like to first clarify as per even PMBOK 7th edition, because PMBOK 7th edition says, not Preetha didn't say, PMBOK 7th edition itself says it doesn't negate any of the previous prescriptive process-based editions, right? So that would, I think, clarify that it doesn't negate the waterfall approach, and all these guiding principles, 12 guiding principles in the performance domains, are generic knowledge which can be used across spectrum of delivery approaches, right? Which is something we tried to kind of explain in the PowerPoint. So the 7th edition, in fact, has got overarching concepts which could be used in any model or any approach, waterfall or any hybrid approaches. So, okay, something, one more question, same gentleman, Sandeep. Okay, we covered that question, Sandeep. I think how PMP 7th edition will be different from ACP. Yes, they are very different because PMP 7th edition covers guiding principles and performance domains which can be used for any approach, right? It can be used for any delivery approach, waterfall or iterative, incremental, anything. SAP is specific to mostly software, and I think Abhishek covered this question a bit elaborately, and that is more confined to the agile principles. SAP goes in depth into agile principles, right? So that is how they are different. So that, I think with that, questions have ended. Abhishek, you want to say something, anything add upon what we clarified, or otherwise we can pass it on to Girish and Ketan to take over?
Yeah, I think so. Pretty much everything is explained. So yes, we can pass on.
Sure.
Thank you,
Girish,
Preetha and
yeah,
Abhishek,
over to you.
for this knowledgeable session. Now I would like to invite our Mumbai chapter Vice President, Volunteer Development, Mr. Ketan Gandhi, for giving vote of thanks and also for presenting certificate to you. While he speaks, I will present the certificate on the screen. Mr. Ketan sir, over to you.
Thanks, Girish. And first of all, thanks, big thanks to, I think, Abhishek and Preetha for this very informative session. And we were trying to schedule this session for quite some time, but it seems that, this was destined to be starting, first
The
session
new
of
year.
2022.
Yeah.
Yes, New Year.
New
And
year,
what
yes.
a big start, very good start of 2022, that we start with PMBOK 7, as well as with such a major presence audience. We have got more than 100 people. I think I could see that 115 reaching audience presence. So that is also, that means there's a well received, and I think people were expecting this to be conducted for quite some time. And that's why thanks for this. This is please accept this certificate as a token of appreciation from PMI Mumbai chapter for this wonderful session and knowledge sharing. Secondly, I would like to mention, I think we also followed, no, we don't just preach here, but we also followed this kind of agile methodology in our conducting sessions. Yesterday, we just mentioned our method of doing sessions, that we conduct sessions, we have a break in between, and then only the second half again we continue. But Mr. Abhishek suggested that let's do this way. We run through the session, and then after the break, we conduct all the questions, handle all the questions at the end. So we said, fine, we'll do that way. And I think our experiment or our approach was very well this thing received and I think very well executed, because I think we could answer all the questions in one go, and collectively or answering them at the end was also very useful. So thanks a lot again on behalf of PMI Mumbai chapter to Preetha and Abhishek, as well as all the people, those who joined us on Sunday morning for this first session, PM Forum session in 2022. And I would like to mention special thanks to our admin team also, those who support us in conducting these sessions, Mr. Sunil and Tushar, those who are always as a backbone giving us support in scheduling this, execution, collecting feedback, summarizing everything. So thanks a lot, and thank you everyone for joining us. Over to you, Giriji.
Thank you, Ketan sir, for a vote of thanks. Today's session has been recorded, and in next 2-3 days, you will be able to see in YouTube. Please provide your feedback, and yes, you will receive the PDF details in the registered email ID. Thank you all for joining today's session. Hope have a good day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have
Thank
a
you.
nice
Thank
day.
you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
इंग्लिशमध्ये सांगत होते. बरं मॅडम झाली आमची सुट्टी कशाला लांब होत आहे.